Many thanks again for staying with us on the program TMI on the ITV network. Of course, on November 12th last year, Senator Monday Okpebholo was sworn in as the fourth governor of Edo State, and for most analysts, he hit the ground running. A few days later, we saw the groundbreaking ceremony for the flyover bridge. And from that particular moment onward, the governor has been about a whole lot just to ensure that he fulfills the mandate given to him after the state governorship election with the announcement of result, his announcement as a winner of that election by the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, even though that's subject to litigation right now at the Edo State Election Petitions Tribunal, which since moved from Edo State, Benin City, to the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja. And proceedings in that tribunal has been quite inspiring, intriguing, interesting. In today's program, we're having the flip side of our conversation with Senator Monday Okpebholo, the APC leader in Edo State. And today we have Engineer Ugbeide Isibo, who was the immediate past commissioner for digital economy at the state. He's also a leader in Ego, and of course, a member of the PDP Edo State Governorship Campaign Council. Ugbeide Isibo, many thanks for joining us on the program this beautiful Thursday morning.
Good morning to you, sir. It's always a pleasure to be with you. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you so much for coming on the program. Let's get our conversation started. That this perspective has been there for a long time, and it keeps reverberating. Looking at the state of affairs politically in Edo State, there are those who probably will describe the former governor Godwin Obaseki as someone who perhaps disrupted the political structures in Edo State while in the APC and eventually moving to the PDP, and that perhaps has put the PDP into a jaundiced position as far as governance and politics in Edo State is concerned. Let's take off from there. What are your thoughts along those lines?
Well, thank you again for having me. First of all, you had described, or rather alluded to Senator Okpebholo as having the mandate of the Edo people. Edo people generally do not hold that view. They feel that INEC colluded with the APC to steal the elections, and that is why we're challenging the case at the tribunal. But back to the point. And the last 100 days have been exciting, and then taking over from where Governor Godwin Obaseki left Edo State, we could see during the Obaseki days that Edo was in the news for very progressive and very productive and transformative reasons. We could see that Edo was in the news when it came to transformation in education. Edo was in the news when it came to making tremendous growth in technology. Edo was in the news when it came to decency in politics. And yes, Governor Obaseki was a disruptor, and I think disruptors are transformers. You know, all over the world, through the ages, wherever politics has evolved, wherever development has been at the forefront of societal growth, it happened through disruptors. And we could check through our history, and we could see that all those who made a mark in their countries, all those who helped to transform society, didn't conform to the regular. You know, they were disruptors. And allow me to say too that I am a disruptor. You know, and so yes, Governor Obaseki's coming into politics from the private sector, you know, ruffled the feathers of many professional politicians a lot. But again, it birthed a new wave of decency and a re-engineering of the way politics is played in Edo State.
But you said from that point that you made, but these actions has left the PDP prostrate in terms of its hold in the state. Isn't this something that is, that should be of concern to you and the party?
No, not at all. The PDP is not in disarray, as one may try to put it, because the PDP clearly won the last governorship elections. Edo people generally know the truth. They voted for Aswan Igodalo. They voted for Aswan Igodalo not just because of the achievements of Godwin Obasaki, but they saw Aswan Igodalo a man that had a vision, a drive, a purpose, and a plan for Edo State. He had a path to progress and prosperity, and they saw in him the capacity to bring those ideals or those goals to fruition. That is why Edo people generally, in their numbers, voted for Aswan Igodalo and voted for the PDP. So the PDP, under Governor Basaki, was strong and formidable. Yes, we had our issues, like every political arrangement does all over the world. There are disagreements within the political family, and it's normal. Yes, there are Republicans who didn't vote and support President Trump, and that is how politics should evolve. I do not have to support you simply based on our political ideologies or political nomenclatures. I have to have a buy-in into your vision and a plan. So the PDP is one formidable team. We are fighting hard to redeem the image of our state. We're fighting hard to regain the mandate given to us by the Edo people. And we're matter of fact that in a couple of months, the judiciary will stand up to the occasion, do what is right for the people, and give the mandate back to us and Godalo.
Okay, Engineer Ifaloye, let's quickly talk about some of the impact that the present administration is making. There's a school of thought that part of the reason why the PDP lost the last governorship election was because the people were tired of politics of consultants, politics of Lagos-based suitcase carrying businessmen who would lodge at some of the high-flying hotels. The people wanted homegrown politicians that will listen to their cries, will be concerned with their plight, and of course the resources of Edo State will be used for Edo people, and then the level of capital flight, which some say was at its highest peak in the last administration, will be at the lowest level. And true to fact, for some analysts, that's already manifesting with the present government in Edo State under Senator Monday Okpebholo. And I'd like to get a reaction to this.
Well, thank you again. First of all, the PDP didn't lose the election. We actually won. But again, to the second part of the question, um, it's mind-boggling when people will want to assume that the administration of Godwin Obaseki, brought in people, or as they call them, foreigners from outside of Edo states to help to administer affairs of the government of the state. That is not true. And one could clearly see that Godwin Obasaki had a different mindset from the average regular politician. And he wanted us to reorganize society. And that would start by reorganizing civil service. Civil service is the engine room of government. And if there must be any form of development, or efficiency or effectiveness in governance, it starts from the civil service. And so what did he plan to do? He saw a situation where civil servants needed to transmogrify from the way they would normally do things to now adopting world best practices in delivering governance to the people. And there was a sense in which we needed some form of help. Yes, there were reforms in the civil service, but there was a sense in which we needed some kind of guidance. So there also have been a kind of cross pollination between those in the private sector helping those in the public sector to make sure that the civil service was re-energized. And that's where people say, oh, he brought in consultants. These people who came to help to give support were mostly Edo people. Yes, some of them came from outside of Edo, but who is more Edo than the other? Irrespective of where you live, as long as you're an Edo man, you're an Edo man. And so it is not true that there was capital flight. Instead, we saw $2.5 billion of foreign and local investment come into Edo State in 8 years, the highest in the south-south region of Nigeria. We saw developmental projects. We saw farmers become millionaires. When people talk about Obasanjo's government being elitist, then I ask them, civil servants in Edo State, public and civil servants, earned the highest minimum wage in the country in 8 years. Is that elitist? We saw farmers get involved in mechanized and commercial farming, especially with regards to cassava and oil palm. In the last 4 years before we left government, Edo became number one oil cultivating and producing state in Nigeria.
Yes, if
It
I
has
may,
not.
that has also popularized the communities where these oil palm plantations are sited, because there is massive
Not at
acquisition
all.
of
It hasn't.
farmlands, and the local people can have access to these farms. If the agricultural policies of the previous government wasn't elitist, how come, for example, a bag of rice in Edo State still sells for 100,000 naira and above? One would have expected that there will be food security in Edo State. The palm plantations
Well,
has environmental implications, has economic implications for the local communities.
I don't share that view. You see, we had 10,000, well, put aside 10,000 hectares for oil palm production and cultivation. And we saw a lot of Edo farmers work, cooperatively with these establishments to improve their yield. Where farmers were having productions, from 1 hectare of land, for example, with the improved yield and improved technology, they increased their yield, as though they were now having 4 hectares of land. We saw that across the state, especially in cassava and oil palm. So when we're talking about pauperizing the local communities, in the last 4 years, that we're able to work with partners to build two ethanol plants. The only state in Nigeria that had the capacity to do that. And what did that eventually uh, uh, transmogrify into? We saw cassava farmers increasing their capacity, now having ready buyers for the cassava produce. The two ethanol plants we have in Edo State would require at least 60 trucks of cassava every day to feed the mill. What did that transform to, or what did that result to for farmers? It meant that more people were going to cassava farming, more people were having off takers, for the cassava produce, and cassava farmers were becoming wealthier and richer and
Okay.
increasing the capacity.
Okay,
That
now
elitist.
cassava farmers are becoming wealthier and richer, but the cost of gari very high, the cost of eba very high, the cost of
No,
akpu
the truth is
very
this.
high. These are staple
It
foods
is.
within the Edo State
Let
locality.
me
So are we
explain. You
feeding
see,
the plants,
it,
the ethanol plants, at the detriment of the food needs or the nutrient need of our local people? So it means that there wasn't a proper match, so that we have enough
no,
to
no,
feed the
this is it.
plants and then for people to
No, no,
consume.
that was not it. Food insecurity, first of all, is a global challenge. Even in America, where there's so much commercial farming, there's still, complaints of lack of food. So it's not a case of, oh, because you're producing so much cassava, then that automatically means that everybody now must not eat eba every day. And so because everybody wants to eat eba every day, we must be able to provide enough cassava for that. That is not the idea behind it. Agriculture is a business, and what were these investors doing? Farmers were increasing their yield. There was the kind of, or the species of cassava needed to feed the mills was not the same species of cassava that we use in producing gari. And even at that, we're able to have improved yields such that farmers were able to produce even more cassava, for local consumption and for manufacturing. So it was a cross pollination. We cannot, generally say that because Delta State produces oil, then Delta people should buy petrol cheaper than every other part of the country. It doesn't really work like that.
Okay.
It's a business. There's this economic scale that
Okay.
affects all of it. Yes,
Okay.
I agree that there's a need for a reduction in the price of food, but then that is, a holistic working together between all the players in the agricultural sector
Okay,
and
let's quickly look at Governor Okpebholo's 100 days in office. Right after his inauguration, he matched words with action. I mean, that's in the public space with the groundbreaking ceremony of the first ever flyover bridge in Edo State. And we've also seen some of the projects he's embarked upon. Um, the legacy projects of the outgone government of Gordon Obaseki were also continued. Aren't these, things we should celebrate within these 100 days, even from you as a member of the PDP?
people today largely feel that there's no need to celebrate anything in the last 100 days. First of all, What we're basically saying is an attempt to celebrate nothing. It's a superfluity of nothingness. What are you celebrating? That there was a groundbreaking for a flyover to be built at Ramat Park. It's going to take 3 years before the people start to enjoy, if at all. That's not going to end up being a white elephant project. Who was the contractor? When was the bidding done? Was it appropriated for in last year's budget or this year's budget? So when people or those who are selected to offices get into office and just take actions, one wonders, do you understand the rudiments of public service? The governor came into office and in that same week, 5 billion naira was given to one of his brothers to purchase vehicles, SUVs, for government. And so the people are asking, was this money appropriated for? Did the House of Assembly give the nod as required by law? Was there a procurement process for these vehicles? Was there a state tenders board that sat to approve this purchase or this contract? Who were the bidders for this contract? Is that not an impeachable offense where government gets to spend money that is not appropriated for? A few days after that, another 11 billion was given for the purchase of Hiluxes. Who's authorizing
So
this
what's
contract?
your
Are we
evidence?
in a
What's the
democratic
evidence
setting?
to back up these figures that you are banning about? The 5 billion naira, the 11 billion. What's the
Well,
evidence to back them
Mr.
up? Or
Sonny,
is this
I was in government and I was a member of ESCO. And of
okay?
course, if we want to get
No, this
information, we need to
this
channel
particular
information.
government or the previous government, we need to
Exactly
put.
what I'm telling you. I was a member of ESCO and civil servants help to run government. So when we come out to brandish figures, we're not talking out of the blues. We get the information by our own sources, and it is true. State government has not come out to deny it. I've said this on several platforms. Nobody has come to refute it because it is true. One would have thought that if it wasn't true, they would have come up with a counter allegation, but there's nothing from that quarters. So we're asking, this money is being spent are monies that belong to the Edo people. They must be appropriated for, but that's not the case there. So the man started on the wrong footing, spending monies that are not appropriated for, which is an impeachable offense. Then a few days after, we saw him dabbling into the affairs of local government councils. When there was a clear, injunction, or rather, there was a clear ruling by the Supreme Court of Nigeria stating that local government councils were autonomous. And by so doing, they had they cannot be submitted or they cannot submit themselves, to the whims and caprices of an executive. But soon as the man came into office, he called, for a meeting with local government chairman, and he asked them to submit their financial records. And the people were telling them that, listen, you do not have the imprimatur of the constitution or of the people to seek to know the financials of local government councils that are autonomous. If anybody wants to know what is happening in local government councils, there are representatives who are elected by law who should be able to know that. So the man came in, petitioned the House of Assembly, then the council chairman were suspended. Then what did we see? We saw hooligans and touts invade local government councils, pretend to be councillors, and pretended to impeach local government chairmen. How can it be
Okay.
that in a sane
Let,
environment,
let
rule
me
of
pause you
law,
there and get you to
touts can
react to two
invade local
things.
government chairmen?
Yes, let me
Yes.
pause you there and get you to react to two issues that you raised. It's this present administration's 100 days celebration is also characterized with the purchases of new buses to revitalize Edo line. And that's a major company in Edo State, which used to be the pride of Edo State. Your government didn't give that, a consideration. It's also on record that many of those Hilux buses that were purchased by this present administration were actually deployed for security purposes and all of that. If a contract was given to someone to do it, do we have evidence that that person is not a businessman or he has a registered company that qualifies him to be able to do that? That's on the one flank.
But,
On the other part,
sir,
for the local government that you
okay.
mentioned, it's also there in the public space that these impeachments that we have seen, some of them though, were actually carried out by the councillors in those local government councils. And these councillors are PDP councillors. Isn't that a case of PDP fighting against PDP, as it were?
Mr. Sonny, we are an organized society that tends to practice with democracy. And there's something called procurement. There's a procurement process. When government intends to make purchases, there are rules and guidelines guiding such purchases. It cannot be the brother of the governor who is to buy buses for Edo Line. It cannot be the brother of the governor who is to buy vehicles for government officials. If at all the governor's brother needs to get a contract, he must go about it according to the law. And so the issue of buses for a Edo line, there's no such thing as a Edo line, first of all. Governor Basaki created the Fleet Management Agency, in 2020 to help to manage and coordinate government vehicles. And what the temporary governor has just done is to purchase buses to hand over to the Fleet Management Agency to now run, mass transits, for the state government. And while some think that that is fine, I don't have a problem with purchasing vehicles to help to improve mass transit. But then, who are those running it? We've had this issue come up over and over again with several administrations trying to revitalize the Edo line. And it always goes through the same route and goes into debt with people pilfering into state resources. And if this government would not adopt a different measure to have like a cross pollination with private individuals who have run successful transport businesses to come help government. Government has no business in business. Government can support businesses, which is what I think we should be doing now. I mean, we have the God is goods of this world who have transformed mass transportation and logistics. Why can't we work in collaboration with some of these companies to help to run this mass transit for government? Why government makes profits? That's how it should be. In a few days now, you see politicians invading these properties, taking a hold of these buses, and it's going to be a mess as always. Then back to local government councils. Let's be honest to ourselves. There were no local government chairmen that were impeached according to the law. Impeachment is a process. It's not an activity that happens in 20 minutes. And it's a process as enshrined by the law. And in all the purported impeachments we saw, we never saw a situation where the local government chairmen were impeached according to the law. We had mainly hooligans invade local government councils, pretend to be councillors, and in 10 minutes, the local government chairman is impeached. Where does that happen? And this is a few days after this administration started. So we're seeing a balkanization of democracy under this temporary administration. And that is why the people are worried. You are in courts trying to solidify or authenticate your mandates. And a few days after, you are tarnishing the ethics and ethos of democracy. The Supreme Court has given a judgment. The man doesn't care about the judgments. The law stipulates how local government chairmen can be impeached. The man doesn't care about that. The man even doesn't know that he has no authority over local government councils. Those are autonomous governments. You cannot want to see go through their financials. You do not have the capacity to do that. So, and that is sad because even those that claim to be his advisors, legal or not, are not aware of these provisions by law. The man has put together people who are just like him, bereft of any ideas to run government. And the people are saying, we cannot continue like that. And that's why they didn't elect you in the first place, because you never interrogated with the people, you never interfaced with the people, you never asked questions with the people, you never submitted yourselves to some form of scrutiny. The people did not know what your plans were, what your goals were. They did not even understand the clarity of your thoughts because you were not able to express yourself before them. Could you imagine? Edo has become a laughing stock before the nation. People make mockery of us. People make merchandise of us. That our governor cannot even read his own budget figures. That was an embarrassment in gigantic proportions. Edo has never been this backward in terms of leadership, and that is why we are hopeful that the wish of the Edo people will come to fruition in a couple of days.
Okay, we'll keep our fingers crossed on that one. But one of the major cantankerous moments of the Obaseki administration was in the education sector, particularly on the state-owned Ambrose Ali University, AAU. During the government of former Governor Adams Oshomole, the subvention to that institution was within the region of 250 million naira. But during the immediate past government, that came down to about 41 million naira. But we've seen the present administration raising it to 500 million naira. I'd like to get your take on this latest development. I mean, comparatively, let's just be dispassionate in our analysis of this, because that seems to have brought some sanity to the school, stability to the school, and things seems to be moving in the right direction. At some point, that was dubbed the best state-owned university in Nigeria. I'm not sure that sort of accolades came to that school during the Obaseki era.
Well, thank you. It's a beautiful subject that I'm happy you brought. First of all, it is not true. that Oshomole paid 250 million per month as subvention. When we came into government, we saw the record. It wasn't 250 million. And so when I heard him say that yesterday, I was laughing. 250 million as of 2008, from 2008 to 2016. Come on, that's a joke. And Obasaki was given 50 million naira as monthly subvention. Really, where in the world does government take responsibility for the running of universities? What educational sector has evolved all across the world through the ages, where government has been the sole financier of tertiary education anywhere in the developed or developing world? There's no such example. And so the case of Ambassador University was a very sad case. And yes, at some point, Densu, that became EDSU, that became AAU, always had glowing tributes being made to the university, having graduated very sound minds across the world doing mighty things. But we saw that for the last decade and a half, or even 2 decades, there was a sustained degradation and destruction of the ethics or ethos of real education in Abu Salim University. I mean, it was a catastrophe. Where we heard of stories where people do not go into the four walls of that university for 4 years, but graduate with a bachelor's degree. Are we going to say that is how a university should function? Where we could see there was a committee set up by the past administration to help to look at these issues of several complaints, because parents were coming to the ministry to complain that our daughters had been harassed. Our daughters are being made sex slaves by their lecturers. We're not having the quality of education that we desire to have for our wards. And that was why the government was worried. How can it be, sir?
Okay. All right.
That
If Ali,
no,
I'll
no, I'm
come back to
coming. No,
you
no,
in a
no,
moment.
let me back up.
I'll come back. We'll take a
Let me
short break
handle
now.
that.
I'll come back to
Okay.
you in a moment. As lofty as these complaints were, I'm not sure that justifies the reduction, drastic reduction of the monthly subvention to the university. Maybe we could have looked at
I was
the
going to tell
structure
you
and the
how.
system to be
I
able
was
to.
going to tell you
But I'll
how
come
and
back to you to
why.
reply on that one. But let's quickly take a quick break. We'll be back with you on the show. Don't go away.
TMI, every opinion counts.
Many thanks again for rejoining us on this conversation on Edo State Governor's 100 Days in Office, talking about Senator Monday Okpebholo. The big issue there is the state of governance. And we have Ogbede Ifaloyi Isibo, a member of the PDP, who was the immediate past Commissioner for Digital Economy in Edo State, has been here talking to these, speaking to these issues. Now, Isibo, we're looking at the issue of education, and you talked about some of these issues, and I asked the question, was it justifiable that on account of some of these issues that you talked about, you reduce the subvention to the school from whatever it was to a paltry 50 million, 41 million, or 49 million naira, as the case may be? Compare that to the 500 million naira that we now have. And I also need you to take that on one hand and then look at the issue of the revenue profile of the state, which you heard has gone up to 10 billion naira or 12 billion naira monthly under the present administration, the highest so far in the state. Let me get your take on these.
Well, let's land on the issue of AAU and the education system. First of all, Godwin Obaseki was a governor that cared about education. We saw how he was celebrated all over the world with the transformation, that he brought to education. But to sit with the issue of the AAU, you see, I found it very unreasonable that all through the years, Oshomele, professed yesterday to have given them 250 million. Was there any infrastructure built by the school administration all through those years? There was none. There was the money going into. Government was paying salaries, government was paying allowances, government was building infrastructure, and government was giving the institution 250 million. What was the money to be used for? Where is it that government? It was a conduit to make people rich, and we could see all of that as exposed by the committee that was set up, where staff members were only bothered about purchasing diesel. That was a business in AAU, where people didn't go to school but got degrees, where lecturers were known, to demand sex for marks. If Governor Okpebholo's daughters were in AAU, would he have suddenly ignored all these complaints and instead give them 500 million every month to do what exactly? All the infrastructure built in AAU today, whether built by TED Fund, UBEC, or by private individuals, there's no structure that has been built or maintained by the state's, the university's authority in the last 20 years. So these monies that we're giving them, what are the monies for? So I celebrate the fact that it appears to be that the governor has dissolved the governing council that was instituted, by Governor Basaki, that was bringing some sanity to the school. He has brought a new governing council, but the fundamental issue of poor education or the lack thereof, has it been addressed? So if there were some lecturers that were accused of demanding sex for marks by students and a committee was made to investigate it and find them culpable, is there no punishment for such actions? You just bring everybody back. So if you had a daughter who had complained to you that there was this lecturer who was demanding sex for marks and refusing to pass her even when she passed his course, and suddenly the man has come back to school, how will you feel? That's why I asked, if the governor's daughters were in AAU, would he have done all of this without investigating the allegations that were leveled against some lecturers and all the craziness of financial misappropriation, squandermania, and fiscal rascality? Do you just give them money? And first of all, let him show us the first time he gives 500 million. Let us see it. It's because it's not just about saying that he will give or he did. Let us see the records to show that it is true that he gave 500 million. Because I know that those State cannot afford to give 500 million naira, monthly to one institution. It's not possible. Then to the second issue, it is a big, dirty lie for anybody to open his mouth to tell you that Edo State's IGR is 12 billion. It's not possible. First of all, Governor Basaki met, a taxpayer's count of 131,000 in 2016. And by the time he was leaving, it had tripled to 372,000 Edo people. So a lot of people who were now starting businesses, a lot of people who were avoiding and evading taxation now were brought into the tax net because they could see that the monies they were paying were not going to private ventures like Akugbe, etc. Were now going to government. And when they could see that it was a digital process, where they're not having to give physical cash to anybody, but then they are giving receipt for every money that they get, the people began to see the sense in paying the levies and the taxes that are due them. And so we moved from a paltry 2 billion naira per month to 7 billion naira per month as of October last year. And by November, December, it dropped to 2.5 billion monthly. So what magic was done between December and January that has not taken the IGR to 10 billion? Let me tell you plainly what happened. NNPC and its subsidiaries operating in Edo State were never paying taxes for the last 20, 25 years. In 2022, Governor Basaki made sure there was an audit on the activities of the NNPC. And since then, NNPC and their subsidiaries were now having to pay a yearly taxation, a yearly levy to the Edo State government in one lump sum. So in 2022, they paid about 3 billion. 2023, they paid about 4 billion or so. And in 2025, they paid 5.7 billion to the Edo State government. So Edo State IGR for January was 4.3 billion, and they added the 5.7 paid by the NNPC to get the 10 billion. And that's a one-off payment for the year. We're going to know what the IGR will be in February. Let us know the magic that was done. Businesses have left Edo State. Investors have left Edo State. Now we're seeing an illegality and unconstitutionality being perpetrated by the ERS, that we're not having to bring back these touts, these hooligans and mental hobos back to revenue collection and enforcement in Edo State. This is something that the Edo people cried of all through the days of Adam Soshomole, where people who were scarcely educated became multi-billionaires off the back of hardworking Edo people. Where we see people touts going to our markets with cutlasses and daggers to terrorize our mothers and our sisters, to beat up bus drivers in an attempt to take levies from them. That was what we saw in the Edo State of Adam Soshomole. And when decency came back to the polity, we saw them being pushed being relegated to the background where they should be. And suddenly, we are seeing unconstitutional third party elements now assist a democratically elected government, as it were, to enforce the collection of revenues and taxes on behalf of EIRs. That is an abnormality. That is a sheer, testament of madness in revenue collection. Where does that happen? In 2025, when we had digital platforms upon which people happily paid their taxes. Now we're going to have the same madness, the same mess that we are trying to do away with for 8 years. Come back to the system, and someone was trying to tell us yesterday, in this case, Senator Adams Oshomole, that those are people in the society that should be engaged. Why don't we engage them in waste management? Let them help us clear our gutters and clear our markets. Let the city look nice. That's a form of engagement too. Since they have the numbers and they have the capacity, how can it be in 2025 we're having to employ consultants? The same consultants, they hate to hear the word consultants, but now they're hiring a consultant who has a track record of causing disharmony, who has a track record of causing pain and agony to the Edo people. We have now brought back this same consultant to help to enforce revenues. According to the constitution, that is illegal. And we are telling the Edo people, do not listen to any of these people. They are an illegal,
So,
set
because
of people.
you made reference to that earlier today, these consultants you're talking about, aren't they Edo people? I remember you raised that issue that the consultants coming from Lagos, we should also find out if they are Edo people. As a matter of fact, you said they are Edo people. These consultants being hired by
Yeah,
Edo State government now, are they not Edo people? Aren't they eminently qualified by ways of having a registered company to do business legitimately in Edo State and engage
this is
Edo
the point.
people to run those businesses? Those they have
This is the
also
point, sir.
engaged to run their business now. They are not people that were hired from outside. They are people that are localized. So capital flight will not be there,
Okay,
unlike the previous
okay, this is
administration.
the point. This is the point. There was no capital flight in the last administration. That is an allegation that has not been proven. So the point is not about hiring Edo people. The APC, just like Adams Oshomole, he hates the word consultant, and that is why we have a problem with those who are not very educated. Consultants are not evil people. Consultants normally will help a system run smoothly, and they are there for a temporary period to help to work in collaboration with those that are on ground to learn best practices. So there's nothing wrong with hiring consultants, but it is the APC who hates the word consultants. That's why I'm talking about it. And two, sir, let us understand the point here. The point is not that our brother Tony Kabaka cannot be patronized by government. The point is that it is unconstitutional to have a third party engage in the enforcement of revenues or taxation in a democratic society, according to the Nigerian constitution as amended. I'm not the one who is saying it. It's illegal. So they can have registered companies, like I said, help us clear our dustbins, help us in the Edo State Waste Management Agency. Be productive in that sense, not in the collection of revenues. No matter how in love Governor Basaki was with
Let
consultants,
let
it
me
was
pause you there,
illegal
and
to have
let's
a
because
third
we're pressed for
party
time. If
collect
I may
revenues on
say,
the
bro,
behalf of the state.
talk about discipline and prudent management of resources. There are those who feel that the present administration has shown capacity by sanctioning two commissioners, one a member of the State Executive Council and another heading a commission, as it were, on the allegations of financial impropriety, as it were. Now, the government of Godwin Obaseki is being accused, is alleged to have plunged the state into, debts running into billions and trillions of naira. The Asset Verification Committee is already talking about over 90 billion naira unaccounted for. I'd like to get your reactions on all of these issues, because these are indictments, except in any case proven by a court of competent jurisdiction.
Thank you. The administration of Governor Basaki, we left a transition committee, a transition report detailing all that we had done for the Edo people, what was left undone, and also suggestions. On page 630, so page 640 has most of the financials of the Edo State government as at the time we left government. Governor Basaki left total assets of 972 billion naira for the Okpebholo administration. That's almost a trillion naira worth of assets. We left 30 billion naira in the Edo State Treasury account. We left 16 billion naira in the SOPADEC account. We left 1.8 billion naira in the EIRS account. We left 2 billion naira in the Ministry of Fiscal Planning account. The very week we left office, $2.5 million came in from the World Bank for Edo Best. They're also about to receive another $5.5 million again grant from the World Bank. They're also about to receive another 16 billion from UBEC. These are funds that we attracted, and these are most of the funds that we left behind. So in the discussion of transparency, Governor Basike was about the most transparent governor we have ever had. That we're leaving the books open, not just for the succeeding government, but for the Edo people. Everybody can have access to the financials of the Edo State government under Governor Basike. And we implore the use of technology in government dealings. So all government contracts, all procurement processes are available online for anybody to check. There was nothing to hide. So the craziness of we're having this 96 billion naira that was local government funds. First of all, what is the business of a state government with local government funds? That is not the function of a state government. That's the function of councillors at local government level. And so if there are allegations leveled against Governor Basaki, the EFCC is constitutionally, aware of their roles and let them play their roles. The man has said, I have nothing to hide. We have 20 million documents archived in the Edo State government database today showing all he did as governor. So there's nothing to hide there. So this government cannot be talking about transparency when from the very first week of their ascension into the throne, we have seen them spending monies recklessly without government, without the appropriation by the House of Assembly, without following due process. So when it comes to transparency, those in this government should please keep quiet and read and listen to what we had left down in the transition report and make sure that when they're handing over to Aswan Igodalo in a couple months, they also tell the Edo people what they met and what they've left. The story of we left 600 billion, like this thing, it is in the public record. We have the transition report available on digital format for every Edo person to leave. The debts left for Mondo Perolo was 400 million naira. And a bulk of it, over 70%, was from the foreign debts handed over to us by Adam Soshomale. Because the value of the naira to the dollar in 2016 and the value today is not the same thing. It has gone over 1,000% higher. So what happens to the debts or the money you took as loans from the international market in dollars? It skyrockets. Because Nabasake did not borrow, it borrowed just about 98 billion local debts in 8 years. Okay. And just a few that were taken from. And so I want to land with this. I watched the interview you had yesterday with Senator Adam Soshomale, and I had a good laugh within the comments of Edo people on that your Facebook and your YouTube account, and I could see the anger. The people were espousing towards his wanting to speak on behalf of a government. When is it time for people to understand that their time has passed? When is it time? I mean, in 2020, my dad called me one day and he said, my son, whenever I Google Ifaluyi Isibo, it is your name that pops up. It is time for me to step aside from politics and allow the next generation thrive. When he said that, I was like, wow, I didn't even know that. Adam Soshomale has a son in government who's about my age, who's a member of the state ESCO. At what time would Adam Soshomale realize that it is time for the next generation to thrive? Why can he be the one speaking on behalf of government when there's a deputy governor, there's a commissioner for information, there's a CPS, there's a special advisor on the media?
But he wasn't here. He wasn't here. He said that repeatedly. If you follow that interview, he said that repeatedly yesterday that he wasn't here on behalf of the state governor and that he wasn't here on behalf of the government because he wasn't. He said that repeatedly.
Okay.
Yeah.
But the impression the other people have from the comments on that post is that we want to hear the person so elected speak to the people.
Okay.
Adam Soshomale spoke for him during the campaign. Adam Soshomale attended interviews on his behalf. That is why we can infer, as a scientist, from observation, experimentation, to draw a conclusion. So if he spoke for you during the campaigns, and
Yeah.
even while you were elected, why is he not speaking for? Why are we going to say he's not speaking for you now?
Okay.
Is it not shameful that the governor of a state does not have the balls to speak to his people, to articulate, even if they're going to read it
All
for
right,
him? They
if I
can
may,
write five
let's not
lines for
really
him against the
let's
people.
not get
That's what it should
personal.
be.
Let's not get personal. Let's quickly conclude this
I'm a
conversation because
citizen
I'm
of
going to
Edo
link up
State,
with
and
our
it is
Abuja
painful.
network studio. But here the point. Just take a listen to this, which is that the election tribunal is ongoing. What I found very interesting is that when you listen to the pro APC media structures, you would think that, I mean, APC is home and dry with the tribunal. When you listen to the PDP media structure reporting on the tribunal, you feel the same way. How do we merge these two to have a very objective opinion of what is coming out from the Edo Election Tribunal without being, subjective? What do you make of this?
Well, thank you. I am the official spokesperson for the petitioner, in this case, Asma Godalo, on the tribunal matters. And I attend all tribunal sittings, and I require to brief the press after every sitting. And, it is enjoyable because there are members of the APC, who also attend those sittings. And so it is troubling when we come out to address the press and we're having, two sides of the story. Let us report the actual story, how it happened. Yes, it's normal for politicians like us to dance towards our political leanings. But again, the facts are there. The facts are there that there was overvoting in several polling units. The facts are there that INEC did not submit herself to her guidelines in several polling units. The facts are there that INEC colluded with the APC and dashed them figures that they did not get from the Edo people. These are the facts that were brought before the courts. And we had witnesses to prove our case. And they also brought a couple of witnesses who alluded to the fact that all that we said were true. And so there was no need for a two-sided story as regards the tribunal matter. It is clear, and in a couple of days the tribunal will give her ruling, and the people will see it.
Okay.
Aswan Godalo won the highest number of lawful votes
Okay.
at the Edo
So
election
let's not
and
preempt
should have been declared
the
winner.
the judiciary. I mean, preempt the
No, I'm
tribunal,
stating
as it
what the
were.
Edo
Yeah.
people, the
Yeah.
opinion the Edo people hold. That's what the Edo people say.
All
That's
right.
when
Thank you.
Godalo
Thank
won
you
the
very
election.
much, Engineer Ogbedi Faluyi Sibo, immediate past commissioner for digital economy at the state, a member of the PDP, chieftain of the PDP, and of course the official spokesman for the Edo State Election Tribunal on behalf of the petitioner, Aswe Iwodalo. Thank you so much for your time, for joining us on the program.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I had a good time. Thank you.
Thank you.